After a couple standalone episodes, we're finally back to the overarching narrative. Now, one of my complaints I had with Clone Wars as a kid is that sometimes the political stuff would get a bit boring, and the way this episode starts off had me really worried that it was just going to be 20 minutes of Senate debates. But nope, what follows is an intriguing story that gets more exciting as it unravels. Now, it is nice to see the character of Senator Chuchi come back and how she's grown as a character since we last saw her in Clone Wars, because we saw her in, season 5 of Clone Wars? Then we had, 6 and 7 without having her in there, and so it's kind of nice to see how she's grown since then. And I thought that given that the first episode of these two that were released this week has her poking her nose where she shouldn't, that they were going to kill her off, especially during the end of the first of this week's 2 episodes. I was on the edge of my seat holding my breath because I was so sure in this one scene where she's being hunted by a sniper that was it. That's how she's going to go out. She's going to get shot because the Empire doesn't like when you go poking your nose where you shouldn't. They see all, right? She's going to get killed off. No, thank goodness for that. She's saved, so they clearly still have plans for her. Now, Dave Filoni has always said when Clone Wars started out that he tried to write the clones in such a way that you care about them as individual characters. And this episode does talk about that. It does talk about the clones being individual people. And it brings up the issue of, okay, the war is over, so do clones deserve the same rights as other citizens, even though they're technically the property of the government because we made them, we manufactured them, but are they still people? And now that the war is over, what do they do when they get too old to fight because they have the accelerated aging? And, they've been programmed for one purpose, combat. So what do they do when they can no longer serve that purpose? And it's not like they're battle droids, right? We shut down the battle droids when the war ended. We just pressed the kill switch for those, but we can't do that to the clones. But also, the Empire still needs an army, but what do we do when the clones get too old? And also, we can't make clones anymore because Kamino got blown up. So what do we do? So you can kind of see where this is going to go. This episode helps plant the seeds for the beginning of the Empire's transition from using clone troopers to using stormtroopers. Now, I was a bit surprised to not see Crosshair in these episodes, because it's been a while since we last saw him, and I thought that given the nature of the story of these 2 episodes and how it affects all the clone troopers, he'd at least be in it for a scene or 2. Maybe we see what he thinks of the Empire's plan to get rid of the clones, since he's very loyal to the Empire, right? It would have been interesting to see how this affects him, right? I'm loyal to the Empire. The Empire's saying that I'm expendable and I'm redundant now. Are they going to come up? I really wanted to maybe see how that affects him, but he's not in these episodes, so that was a huge missed opportunity. And Rex finally comes back. Now, it's a cameo. He's not a main character in these episodes, but I always like seeing Rex, even if it is just for a short amount of time. I also really like what they did with Omega in this episode, having her learn about Coruscant and how the government works, because she is still a kid, or at least relatively a kid, again, given the clones have the accelerated aging, but by clone trooper standards, assuming she's a clone, she's still a kid, and she hasn't really been outside Kamino even up to this point, so she still has much to learn, so it was nice to see her kind of get to learn a bit about that. And I also really enjoyed the stealth mission part of the story, where the Batch needs to get evidence that Senator Rampart, who's the villain in this episode, he did intentionally destroy Kamino at the end of the last season, because there's a lot of, I didn't do it. No, it was an accident. There was no intent. No, it was totally intentionally bombed. And that was an exciting part of the episode with the heist element of it. It had all the standard action and stakes I expect from the show. And, whoo boy, the way these episodes end, the way this week's episodes end was super ominous. Because the Batch both wins and doesn't win. Yes, they managed to get proof of the conspiracy that's going on, but Palpatine, being the snake he is, uses the opportunity to twist it to his advantage to get what he wanted in the first place. And that is, of course, the transition from clone troopers to stormtroopers. Oh, the clones were involved in bombing Kamino. They're too loyal. They follow orders too easily. We need people who can think for themselves. We should maybe start getting rid of the clone troopers. By the way, thanks for being the fall guy, Senator. You helped me get what I wanted in the first place. That was so good. That was such a great twist. So good. Now, this episode ends on a bit of a somber note because Echo decides to leave the Batch so he can help Rex. Now, obviously, we haven't seen the last of them. They're hinting that we probably haven't seen them, but seeing Omega get absolutely shattered by the news that Echo is leaving the Bad Batch, oof, that was a gut punch way to end this episode. And this was a refreshing return to form after some still good, but let's be honest, filler episodes. We're starting to get back to the meat of the show. I'm excited to see where it goes from this point. We're about halfway through the season. It's only going to get better from here, hopefully. Let me know what you thought, and come back here for next week for my thoughts on next week's Bad Batch episode. I look forward to discussing it with you all.